Okay, hello to all. This is Alejandro Bratti from Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business, and welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. Where you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free and available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Roku, and all smart TVs. Today, I am so happy that I have a good friend, Aleana. How are you, Aleana, today?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, so this program it's about our belief system, how that help us to create new things, how it help us to become our best version and start to be our best version when we are with others. And that aligns very well with what you are doing because you are talking about brands are alive. It's not only a brand, it's not my personal brand, it's a brand that is changing, that is. So let's start with what you are doing now, and then we go back in your life, in your story, to start to understand where all of this is coming and how develop that part in your life. So, what are you doing with Brand Are Alive?
Sure, yeah, thanks. So, Brands Are Alive, I started this only a couple of years ago. The backstory is I was a marketing consultant for almost a decade, and I've been a marketer since 2008. And I've been an entrepreneur. So, this is not my first business, but it's the first business I've created that's really from the heart. And this is the difference.
Mm,
Is what I do now is I help other entrepreneurs. So, creators, entrepreneurs of any kind, but especially solopreneurs and small business owners who are building brands of full self expression, meaning people who want to not just create a business for the sake of making more money, but also to express who they are, to build a life and a business around their purpose and their passions and expressing themselves so that the business becomes a vehicle for self expression as opposed
mm,
to just a means to make money. So that's the core difference in what I do today versus what I was doing for the past 15 years or so.
awesome. And where is this coming from? Why this is important for you doing this now?
It comes from my personal experience because I, for the longest time, kept building businesses because I always felt that I wasn't good enough in some way. Of course, I wasn't consciously thinking this, but looking back, these achievements they were really fueled by a sense of I am not good enough and I have to do more in order to be enough. And I was always chasing after the next thing and hoping that the next thing was going to give me a certain feeling of I'm finally complete. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to that. And eventually it got to a point where I built the perfect business. I always thought that if I get to a certain income level, a certain type of client, and a certain, recurring revenue of a certain threshold, I've built the perfect lifestyle. I was like traveling all the time. I was barely working 2, 3 hours a day, and my clients were great. Everything on paper was perfect. So I was like, well, hold on. If everything is so great and I'm still not fulfilled and I'm still not feeling the way that I thought I would feel, I'm still not feeling confident, I'm still not feeling complete, if you will, surely doing more of this is not going to magically make me feel any different. And it was honestly the weirdest thing is that the time when on paper I was doing the best is when it was rock bottom internally because the
Wow.
discrepancy between the outside and how great it was on the outside versus what was happening internally was huge. At least up until that point, I had money to motivate me. I had achievement to motivate me. I was like, once I make this, or once I have this kind of client and I'm making this kind of money and I'm getting this kind of feedback and recognition, I will feel great I'll feel accomplished. I'll feel fulfilled. I'll feel like I've done something meaningful.
Mm,
So it was the strangest thing, but it was rock bottom for me. And I remember one day, it was a Friday, it was like 4:45 p.m., and not that I was working until 5 p.m. anyway. I was only working a couple hours, if that. But I was getting ready to shut off my computer, and my favorite client, the one I actually liked the most, sent me a request asking for something that would barely take me 15 minutes. And I just remember feeling like I could no longer push myself to do the work. I was so drained. I was so tired all the time. I felt like everything was a struggle. Everything was too much work. And I felt bad because this is a client I loved who was honestly paying me too much money for my attitude. I was like, he deserves better than this. I deserve better than this, and it's time for me to make a change. So yeah, that was the moment when I decided I have to make the switch. And it wasn't an easy thing, of course, because I had built all of that. So how do I move from that to this and start all over? But I knew I had to do it. And I'm glad.
And what is in your head? What is the difference from, because at the end you were working marketing and now you are working
Still
marketing too. So
marketing.
it's like,
Yeah.
why? What is the change? Like, okay, that's great, Aleana, but for me, you continue working in marketing in both
Mhm.
areas.
Yeah. So the difference is that after the longest time in marketing, or in any field, I think if you care about it, you start to develop your own perspective and to see things differently. And what changed fundamentally is I finally allowed myself to bring all parts of myself to what I was doing. So before that, I was walking the line, doing what I was supposed to do, what I was expected to do, what the market wanted of me, what I knew would sell. And the shift was that I'm doing marketing my way, and I'm doing it in a way that doesn't make sense to most marketers. That doesn't even make sense to me sometimes, but I'm like, this is what my gut is telling me. This is what my heart is telling me. This is what my intuition is telling me. So it's not that I made a shift completely from the logical thinking to just completely purely following my heart. I am following my heart, but I'm still introducing all other sides of myself. It's just that I stopped judging myself, and stopped repressing the other parts of myself, such as the interest in spirituality and the meaning of life and philosophy and art and creativity and psychedelics and all of these things. I brought them to marketing. So before, it used to be this very dry, beep boop. This is what the client wants. This is the offer. Is very logical, and that's that. But now I'm bringing all of that creativity, and I am encouraging people to also bring all of themselves to everything they create. And also, the difference is that now I have this radical expression of I only work with people who are creating from the heart, and I create from the heart, and that's it. And normally that doesn't make any sense because, again, in marketing and business, it's a very logical exchange. It's like how you're paying money for ROI, and it's still the case, except now I am measuring it in so much more than this is how much money I can make from working with this client. Now it's completely heart centered. It takes my heart into account first and foremost. So yeah, you're right that I'm still in the same field, so to speak. I'm still doing marketing. I'm still doing brand strategy. I'm still doing all of these things, but I'm also doing it with all of me, and I'm helping other people bring that to their brands and businesses.
And I know that I told you that I want to know a little bit more from your story, but I want to go a little bit deeper on this because what you are expressing and saying is for me very powerful, and for sure a lot of people that is listening to us or watching us is knows that this is very powerful. So you are in marketing, but you are doing it in a way that you don't like. Maybe because it's the way that the market is pushing you to do it, because according to all the things that you learned in the past,
Mhm.
that's what you need to do.
Mhm.
Then it's like, okay, but there is another Aleana that wants to do it in a different way. How did you connect both? What happened in the middle to become this person and be free to be this person, and
Mm.
not thinking like, okay, there is something that has to happen here. Is the aha moment, but also you started to work in yourself. You said something. What did you do to become this free Aleana that can be free with creativity, with all the things that you want to do, and even, and I can tell you, and everybody that is here, because I have been working also with Aleana, is uh, it's like what you are saying is sometimes it's counter, it's exactly the opposite of what the market is
Yep.
saying that we are supposed to do.
Yep.
So how you free this person? What were the steps or the thing that you did to do it?
It's funny that you say the steps because we're so conditioned to think this way. And I think this way too, a lot of times. And, that's the tendency, is to think there are steps. Of course, there are steps to achieving certain results. But when it comes to full self expression, it's really in the day to day decisions that we make to choose from love as opposed to fear. And there's not one moment where you're suddenly going to become fully self-expressed. You have to choose it every single day and every moment. You're going to be presented with times when you can either allow yourself to move towards your full self-expression despite the fear, despite the logical side of your brain telling you that this decision doesn't make any sense, but you still do it because you feel at some level that this is what your heart is calling you to do, so you do it. This is not something that only started with this business. I started doing this a long time ago. I think my whole life, and I think for everyone, our entire life is this, there's this tug of war between the part of ourselves that wants to be free and wants to be fully self-expressed versus the part that wants to be safe, the part that wants to be liked, the part that wants to be accepted. And what happens is we get caught up in this persona or different personas and characters that we create for ourselves to navigate life. And we get so identified with these characters that when we outgrow them, we are afraid, but then this character becomes limiting because we've outgrown it. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's outdated. It's kind of like an outdated, software and needs an upgrade. Doesn't mean that the old software was bad, it just means that it's outdated. And so for me, it has been this constant choosing of love versus fear, constant choosing of, I want to make this decision, I want to create this marketing campaign, but I know marketers and experts and everyone is telling you to do X, but I'm going to do it this way because I want to do it this way because this is more fun, and it's a process of really reconnecting with your inner child and playing. It's play, it's all play. So, it's not one thing, it's everything. And it's not just the things that you do in your business, because you can't be free in your business, but then restricted in other areas. If in other areas you restrict yourself and you don't allow yourself to be fully self-expressed, then when it comes to your marketing and your branding and your business, you're not going to sit down and suddenly become creative and alive and excited and having fun. That's not going to happen. You have to practice that to be it day in and day out. And then when it comes time to create, it's so much easier to do that. And this is a journey of a lifetime. It doesn't stop. So
I agree with you, but I am pushing a little bit more. But in the case of, for example, when I'm working with someone, the problem normally is they don't have really clarity of who they really are. So it's like, okay, yeah, of course, I want to be alive, but I don't know what is that alive person. I know what you are saying, that day to day I can connect to a better person when I have the clarity, but when I don't have it, it's like, yeah, I am stuck because I don't like what I have, even when I am having a lot of success because of the money and because of all the things that I can do. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I know that there is something else, but I don't have clarity of what is that something else.
Yeah.
So that's more the question.
I know exactly what you mean. And this is something that I used to ask until, believe it or not, it was a psychedelic ceremony that gave me the answer. So I was so consumed with understanding it with the mind, when this is supposed to be an experience. Who you are is not to be understood with the mind. Who you are is something to be experienced. It's something that you can only connect to when you are being, when you are present. That's, for example, when you practice mindfulness, let's say in the form of meditation is the most basic one of them, just sitting down and listening in. You connect to that part of yourself where you know, this is who I am. This is who I am. It feels like home. This is who I am. And it's a feeling, it's an experience. It's not something that you're going to be able to capture with the mind. You can, in the same way that if I try to explain to you what is a rock, what is a stone, you can only give me the characteristics of the stone, but the stone has to be experienced. You have to actually hold it, see it, feel its presence to understand what it is. And who you are is the same way. And who you are is ever changing. It's an infinite potentiality, and it's ever changing. It's always evolving. So trying to capture it, the more you try to capture it, the more it escapes, the harder it is for you to know who you are and to be with yourself. But one clue we all have is the desires that we have and the joy that we have. When you feel love, that's what it is. If our nature is love, if we are love, that's who we are and that's what we are, then that means every time you feel love, and I'm not talking about romantic love, I'm just talking about love in the sense of love, right? Loving a thing, loving a being, whether that's a person or any other life. whenever we are in that state of love, the reason why it feels so right is because that's our nature, that's home, that's who we are. And so if you can surround yourself more and more with the things you love, the people you love, the things you really enjoy, and constantly chasing after this feeling of aliveness, not pleasure, but joy. There's a difference. Pleasure is eating chocolates and, watching Netflix. Joy, fulfillment, aliveness is in presence, in the enjoyment of the things that are beyond pleasure, that really bring this sense of completeness and fulfillment, because we recognize our nature as one being of love. So the more we can live in that space, the more we can connect with who we are. And then the flavor, that's completely to be discovered. That's the reason we are here. I like to say that we are all a unique expression of the divine universe. Each one of us is a unique expression of the same consciousness. And so I can't tell you who Alejandro is. I can help you uncover that. And you don't even know with your own mind. But if you were to try and go out there and pursue what makes you feel alive, you will start to discover all these things about yourself that you didn't know. And that's the joy of it. It's to discover who we are. It's to uncover the flavor, the shape, the color of this manifestation that is really just one unique way that the universe is expressing itself.
I love that. And that's exactly what I was looking when I started to push you, because at the end it's like, okay, I need to find that clarity, but
Hmm.
it's in that process of understanding who I am, and not judging that. That's what I'm hearing. It's like not
That's exactly.
judging this. Oh, it's this guy that is doing all these mistakes is the person that I don't like, and that's why I can be doing other things than what the market is saying, for example.
I love that you said that. That's a really good point, not judging yourself. Because if you remember, and we talked about this in one of the sessions, right? Like, how do you get to know someone? By listening to them and asking them questions. So you know who you are in the same way that you get to know another person. You ask them about themselves, you listen, you don't judge them, because if you judge them, they're going to close off. They're not
Yeah.
going to tell you the truth. They're going to try to pretend to be someone that they're not, because they're not comfortable showing you their truth. And that can happen with ourselves. Sometimes we judge ourselves so much that we can't even be ourselves when we are alone. We're like, no, 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 I'm not that. I reject that. But if we can love everything about ourselves, even if we don't like it, that's okay. You can love something and not like things about it. That's fine. You don't like, I don't like a lot of things about myself sometimes. That's okay. I love myself unconditionally. So if I allow myself to be who I am with myself and with other people, despite the judgment. And I'm sure there are tons of people out there just like who would listen to me and be like, what the heck is this woman talking about? And judging. That's okay, because it is what it is. But if I can suspend that judgment, I will get to know myself so much more. So I'm really glad you brought that up. That's a really good point.
So now I believe it's a good time to go back. Like, okay, where is Aleana coming? A little bit about like how you started to love, even when you needed to change and evolve, like you evolve with marketing. But uh, so, but who is Aleana? Where are you coming from?
Who is Aliana? And it's an interesting question. I don't know what I am. I know who I am, but I don't know what I am. I think the self is a very big mystery. It's probably the biggest mystery in existence, to me at least. Who am I is I have another question for myself always. It's who am I becoming? Because the next iteration, that's what we're always working towards. And it's not to say that the current iteration is not good, but you know this, right? Like there's that joy of constantly
Yeah.
growing and expanding and seeing how much further can I go. And so I'm always living in that line of like, who am I becoming next? I get very excited about that. And where I come from, are you asking about like the story of how I ended up here, or?
A little bit to know from your story, like things that you needed to overcome also to start to create the version that you are right now.
Sure. Oh, I mean, there's so much. I mean, if we're talking about there's the inner part, and then there's the actions, right? And I always, whenever I'm thinking about the action, I think if we get stuck thinking about what we do without talking about who we are being while we're doing it, we end up doing a lot of things. We're doing the right things, but they're not really giving us the results that we're looking for.
Mm.
So, in the beginning, I thought that being fully self-expressed means I'm always enjoying the work that I do. I only do the things that I enjoy. I I don't work with people that make me feel a certain type of way. If it's not aligned, if it's not perfectly aligned, I don't want to do it. Right? That was one misconception I had. I thought that presence and mindfulness equaled meditation, or that meditation equals spirituality, or I had all these ideas, and I was still trying to make sense of it with the mind. But then what I realized is it's really about who you're being while you're doing it. And the best thing that I can tell you honestly is that this everything that I'm doing now is a practice of being in the present moment and making peace with the present moment and being fully present in the present moment. When we do that, whatever we do works. It's not about what you do or how you do it. It's about who you are in the moment as you're doing it. And if who you are is you're fully present and energetically you are clean, meaning that your thoughts are in alignment, your emotions are in alignment with the action that you are taking, then almost any strategy that you take in your marketing and in your business is going to work. We get so caught up on the actual actions, but it's really the inner alignment that makes or breaks the action. Does that make sense when I talk about it that way? I feel like maybe that was a little bit. I know you can handle it, but I just want to know if it's
I,
like practical enough or.
I no, I understand it very well. I tell you something that, in my case, for example, has
Mm,
helped me always in my life. Is like I had a professor that I remember at the university that was telling me all the time that, okay, you have to be talking in like just theorems and nothing else, because if you give examples, you are limiting everything that you are trying to say. But in my case, I learn more with examples. So
me too.
you are giving a very good like theorem of how are you working on this. What I believe can be very powerful is to start to share some of the stories or some of the things that allow you to create this version, and start to see like, okay, you are not all the time living in the present moment.
Mm-mm.
So like, how was that process to start to work on that? I know that it's a habit that you need to be working on yourself all the time to do it.
Mm.
But how was life before, and
Mm.
what was the change that helped you to start to realize like, okay, I will start with 5 minutes per day to be present, and that's where you started to create the habit
Mm.
to be present.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. Okay, so first of all, before all this, my life was a constant struggle. Everything I was doing was always really, really hard. Even when it was working, it was only after I worked really hard and after I sucked my energy, basically. So, businesses, I was picking whatever I thought was going to work. I was constantly flip flopping. I had this massive, massive comparison problem. And to give the listeners a little bit of context, at the time I had e-commerce businesses. So for example, one of the businesses I had was a very successful skincare business, but I just could not stop looking at these billion-dollar skincare businesses and comparing myself and why they have their stuff put together and it's so beautiful, and I can't do branding and marketing like that. I don't have the same resources. I would post something and I would worry if people were going to listen to it or read it or watch it. I was constantly obsessing over things that were outside my control, and it was exhausting. It was exhausting running a business like that, because it was always this: I'm looking for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And everything I was doing, I was really driven by fear. It was really driven by, I want to prove myself. I want to prove that I am good enough. And I just didn't feel good enough. I just didn't feel like anything I did mattered. And the steps that I took, for example, from moving from that and the consulting business of working with clients that sometimes were even like, I knew that we were not aligned, but I would stay with them because of the money, because it's really good money. And I'm like, logically, this makes no sense. I can't let go of this client. They're polite, They didn't cuss me out. They are paying me on time. The work is fairly easy. It's not hard. So what's the reason? I was always trying to find a justification. What I wanted didn't matter to me. How I felt didn't matter to me. What made me happy didn't matter to me. What mattered is to be right, to be the good girl, to do the right thing. If the client on paper is good, then I have to keep the client. If the work pays money, I have to keep it. You know, it wasn't enough that I just don't want it. I'm not aligned with it. Who cares why? I'm not aligned with it. It's not right for me. This is not exciting. That was not a good enough reason for me to let go of something or, pursue something different. So that's how I used to approach it. And when I made that switch, well, one of the first things I did is I started letting go of all these clients and shutting down that business, which was crazy because I had spent years building that. And I had these great clients, and on paper, everything was wonderful, but I knew it was a chain because it was so comfortable. I said to myself, I have to let that go slowly. If I stay here and I keep building the other thing, I'm always going to be tempted to go back to this. I'm not saying everybody should do it the same way, but that's what I did. I was willing to downgrade my life. I was willing to move. I was willing to make big, big, big changes in my life in order to do this. I was willing to do that. Some people want, some people don't want. There are easier ways to transition. But I started to make myself uncomfortable on purpose. So, for example, when I started posting videos, I can't tell you how much struggle I had with being visible. I just could not talk to people. I did not like to be on camera. I did not like talking to people. Even my calls with my clients, my camera was always off. Like, I did not want to be on camera and on video and on social media. I did not use social media for me, let alone for a business. So the idea of going on social media, I dreaded that. I hated, being on it. It was all very difficult, but I pushed myself to do it. And I pushed myself to do it in a way that was joyful to me. And at first, it wasn't joyful. At first, it's not like I was like, oh, yay, this is ease and flow. I'm making videos. Awesome. No, at first, it was like, I don't enjoy this, but I know the version of me that is fully self-expressed is someone who is not only not afraid to be seen, but is completely comfortable to be seen and enjoys speaking and sharing her ideas. So I have to move in that direction. And that means temporarily doing something that doesn't feel good and doesn't feel right, but it's going to lead me towards the thing that I do want. And now, I mean, we're sitting here and having this live conversation, and I feel zero nervousness. But that was on the back of a long time of being very nervous. I kicked myself in the butt. I made myself do this 30-day live challenge where every day I, would go live with just one idea and go and talk about it. And it was terrible. it was so bad. It was so bad. My video sucked. I was just trying to come up with the thought and forgetting, and couldn't look straight in the camera, and sometimes it was like a deer in headlights. So there was a lot of little things that and this is the thing, Alejandro, is as I was watching it, man, it was really hard. When you like watch yourself and you don't like stuff, right? It just feels so bad, and like I wanted to hide, but then the other part of me is like, it's okay, you gotta keep doing it. And it was this is exactly what I was talking about when I said this dance between, like, I love myself, but I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this. Oh, I hate this. But I love, there's part of me that loves me so much that it's like, I'm gonna be with you until we make it through this, and it's okay, and we'll keep working on it. And a big part of it was being okay with being seen in a very imperfect state. Because if I was going to wait until I was perfect to start creating, which is for the longest time, that's what I said. When I have all my ducks in a row, everything is perfect on the brand, then I will start building a brand. But it's like, in order to get there, you actually have to allow yourself to be imperfect. So again, it's a whole process of fear and all of the derivatives of fear versus love. And fear can manifest as fear of judgment, suppressing yourself, sometimes anger, sometimes sadness, but it's all rooted in that same emotion. Moving from that to being like, if I give it loving awareness, that's going to make it okay. And breathe through it and do it anyway. You breathe through it and you do it anyway. And it's always a small step and a small step and a small step until you get someday you're like, wow, Like all these little things actually really added up. Now, when I look back, there was not one big thing. It was all the small things that really added up after a while.
So, and this is very interesting because what comes to my mind when we started to talk today, we were talking about like, okay, I want to create this. I want it to be this version that is fully free and it's my best version. For example, that I am doing all this stuff. And the other one that was I am doing this because the market and because even
Mm.
when I hate it. So, and something that you are talking about, the thing that started to help you in the process was again doing things that maybe you hate because being in public and even being in front of the camera was something that you didn't like, but suddenly was something that you feel that you need to do even when I hate it. You know,
Hmm.
so this example is very good because at the end, becoming this best version doesn't mean you are not doing things that are uncomfortable.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a very good point. It's not about, this is where in the beginning I used to trip up. I used to think, well, if I want to be my full self expression and do what makes me feel alive and what's joyful to me, then that means I have to have fun all the time. And I did that for years and that didn't work. That if I really wanted to follow what was most pleasurable, again, I would be eating ice cream in front of Netflix. That's the best, like just watching something and eating. It's fun, it's no effort, but that's not really full self expression. It's not about immediate gratification or pleasure. It's about, again, like, you know, I what ultimately what I wanted, and this is true for me, and I think it's true for everyone, that we all feel like we want to be seen, even especially the people who say they don't want to be seen. I used to say that I didn't want to have a personal brand. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to have an audience. I didn't want. I wasn't consciously lying or something, but that's because those were the wounds that were speaking. That was the pain speaking. The fear was speaking. I was so
Mm.
afraid of, because I thought that I wasn't lovable the way I was, and I was like, well, I'm not good enough to be, visible. So I don't like being visible. So, but it gets to a point where it's like, okay, if I want to be speaking my truth, sharing my message, which is the biggest drive for me, that pushed me to do this, was because I knew that this message, it needed somebody to say it. I can't go behind the scenes and tell the world to be fully self-expressed. I have to do that first.
Mm.
And that means doing things that are not fun. One of them was making videos. And boy, talking to people was another thing. I did not like talking to people. There was just so much that I don't like and that I have to do. But eventually, once I learn to do it and I get more comfortable, it becomes so much fun. So I want everybody listening who's right now having resistance to something, I want you to know it gets better. In the beginning, it's gonna suck. But if you stick with it for a little bit and you do it anyway, and you find a way to enjoy it, you find a way to make it easy on yourself, you will start to love it. So it's not like I was making videos and going out of my way to making videos bad. I was like, okay, what's the path of least resistance when it comes to creating videos? Sure, I have to
Mm.
make videos and I don't like making videos. How can I make this easier? Maybe instead of making a video and trying to make a professional editing, I'll just do a simple video and like simple cuts. Maybe instead of making 5 videos back to back, which is too much work, I'll just split it on like one video per day. Find ways to make it easier on yourself, but you have to do it. You have to face it for sure.
Awesome. So now let's start to enter to the world of your clients
Mm.
because I love even the experience and everything that you have said today because at the end that is putting like the foundation of what you really do when you want to help a brand to become alive. So tell me a little bit more of how is that process when you have somebody new that is like, okay, it resonates with me, everything that you're saying right now, but
Yeah.
I don't know where to start. Start to help me how to start.
Sure. Depends on how far they want to go with me. I mean, we can go as far as doing all the crazy stuff together, or we can have very light a very light approach, depending on how deep they want to go with the process. Some people just don't feel like they are ready for their fullest self-expression right away, but they want to be a little bit more fully self-expressed. That is always the core of what I do. So I always start with the goal in mind, because I believe that if you're working on improving like your life and improving yourself, and you're pursuing your full self-expression and your creative side, if you don't have an end goal or a little bit of structure, creativity can become chaos, and we don't want that. I don't want people to just go, how can I be fully self-expressed, without really knowing what is it that they're trying to do. Okay, so in the process of, let's say, if you tell me that I want to achieve XYZ in this many months, okay, who do you need to be in order for that to be an effortless result? And I always like to encourage people to think as long term as possible first, because the biggest thing that trips people over is time. When we put the time limitation, we start to think very small. We start to think, what is a reasonable thing that I can do in 1 year or in 2 years or in 6 months? But if we say, put time aside, close your eyes and imagine, yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you have achieved everything you ever wanted, and life is perfect. From this place, who are you being? From this place, what are you doing? How are you carrying yourself? And you begin to see how the person knows who they really are when they get out of their way. Like, once you remove the layer of fear, all that is left is the truth of the person. Because once you remove that pressure of time and pressure of fear, the person easily reveals who they really are at their core. And everybody knows, deep down, everybody knows what their next level is going to be. Everybody knows who their higher self is. It's very easy. All you have to do is listen in. All you have to do is just close your eyes and sit with yourself for a few minutes, connect to that place, and you will be able to see very clearly and very vividly who you really are. Sometimes people call it higher self, sometimes they call it future self. Some people call it the self, the God self. It's all one for me. It's also another manifestation of the inner child, which is not a kid. It's a very wise being within all of us that is not bound by time. It's independent from time and space. It's much bigger. It's infinite. So once we've connected to that being, people know intuitively who they want to be, who they know themselves to be, if only they would remove fear. Now, the problem is, in order for them to go towards that goal that they want to go towards, of course, fear is going to come up. Of course, there's going to be blocks. It's like a voice in your head that tells you, who do you think you are? What are people going to think? Oh, nobody's going to take you seriously. This was a big one for me. I was always afraid that if I allowed people to see this side of me, that nobody was going to take me seriously. Nobody is going to listen to me, because I don't sound like all the other marketers, and I don't sound like all the other business people. So all these voices are going to come up, and we start to move in that direction. And that's partially the inner work and partially the outer work. The outer work is the strategies, the marketing strategies, the defining of the content goals, the defining of the brand essence, the brand promise. We did some of that together, all of these things together. And then the other part is the inner work, which is working through the inner crap that holds you back, which is why on LinkedIn, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on TV, but helping people unclench. The reason is because that is really what it is. It's like we all know who we are and who we want to be, but we hold ourselves back. Nobody else is holding you back. Nothing. The whole universe is behind you. God universe is behind you. Is like, you're here to express yourself fully. You're the only one who is holding yourself back, who's afraid. And you think people are going to judge you or say things, but actually most people would love to see you being fully self-expressed, because it helps them. So that's what it is. It's a combination of the inner and the outer work. And it's an ongoing game.
Yeah, the end sounds like being like a coach and a mentor and a mix of both, depending on the stage of the other person. So
Yeah. It's part mentorship and guidance, and part marketing strategy and brand strategy. Yes.
so if I hear that, if I am in that process of inner discovery, but I always thought that the marketing is in the old way or in the traditional way, let's say like that. How much time is needed to do this mix of both things, the inner work and the strategy for the marketing to really flourish everything that I want to flourish?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you repeat that one more time?
The question is like, I am thinking like I am a person that it's right
Mhm.
now in the listening. It's like, okay, everything that we have talked resonates with me. So, but I have used always a traditional way of doing marketing. That means
Mhm.
that I don't have to do any inner work to really do. I just tell you what is exactly what I want, and you do all the work, and I just wait and start to see the results. That's normally the traditional way.
Mm.
So, doing all this inner work, I agree. I believe it's the most important way to do it because at the end, the true self comes out, and that's exactly what starts to happen. But according to your experience right now, how much time does
Uh,
it take?
okay, I just want to make sure that I understand your question correctly. It takes a lifetime. That's what it takes. To be honest, like I'm not going to be the person to tell you like if you follow the blueprint of 7 steps, you're going to be fully self-expressed. It's a practice of a lifetime. And that's not a very sellable thing to say because it's not what people want to hear, but it is something you have to do for the rest of your life. Now, as far as my work, I have a process, my framework is the brand essence amplifier, and that is a 63-day process. 63 days, it's exactly 9 weeks. And it's 3 phases. Each phase is 21 days or 3 weeks. And it starts with the inner work and then the inner discovery, the brand and the marketing strategy. And it's very, very hands-on. It's an accelerator. It's extremely um, uh, for the person who is going through it, the person who wants to go through it has to be ready for a radical transformation because it's not a very light passive thing. It's like you will not recognize who you are in 63 days from doing that. Does that mean that all of your dreams are going to come true in 63 days? Probably not. Where I always, like I said, I like to think in long terms. I have goals for brands that are alive that are beyond my life. I Ideally I want this business to be continue growing after I'm dead. But I also have these short term goals and these sprints. And I believe in the power of proximity. So it's not even the information that changes people, it's just being around somebody who's doing it and who's also showing you an example of how you can do it. And you do it and you come back and you talk to this person every day because it's not like just a weekly thing. There's a weekly session, but every day there's a touch point. And so that's why I said it's very, very hands on. And it starts with the inner work. Then there's the branding, the marketing strategy. And I have the 63-day signature practice, which I call the spiritual creative flow practice. This is a practice to enter a state of flow so that you can create content joyfully. Because I really believe this from the bottom of my heart. And I've seen it not only for myself, but for other people. How you feel when you are creating your marketing and your content makes or breaks your content. People only think about what's the strategy? What do I do? But they don't think about the fact that the marketing and the content has to be aligned with the nature of the person who is creating it. It's kind of like going to the gym. If you want to have a nice body, you have to find not just a workout and nutrition plan, you have to find something that you enjoy so you can keep doing it for the rest of your life. Marketing and building a brand is exactly the same way. You have to find what works for you. You have to find what's joyful to you so that you can keep doing it. Otherwise, you will do it only long enough to get the result. And as soon as you get the result, you'll stop doing it and then it'll stop working. And that's where you have people having the feast and famine cycles where sometimes they make money and then they don't make money and then they make money, et cetera, et cetera. It's because they haven't found what works for them and what they really, really enjoy.
Mm, love that. So we are almost, it's incredible, but we are almost at the end of the
Yeah.
program. So anything that you, okay, first, how people can contact you if anybody wants to contact you and learn more about this, or they are curious how it works, even if you have a quick call or how it
Mhm.
works to connect with you.
Yeah.
And the other one is what if they forgot about everything that we said and or they just catch something of that, what can be something that you want them to like nourished, and it's like this is mine, and I am going to have this. And thank you, Aleana, for this. So, what is that thing that you
Mhm.
want to give? You
Sure.
have given a lot, but
Thank
just
you.
to finish.
My pleasure. My pleasure. What I want to give them is a couple of things. One is a tangible thing. They can go to brandsarealive.com/mojo. It's very easy. If you go to brandsarealive.com and you go to Mojo, you'll find it right there. Put your email, and I will send you a starter kit, which has 4 videos and 3 how-to guides to help you build your brand of full self-expression. So anyone who is starting out, who doesn't even know where to get started, and they want to understand what is my brand's emotional signature, how do I explain what I do when I don't know, how do I explain who am I, what do I do, who do I do it for, how do you build a brand? Like, what's the 80/20? I don't have a ton of time. What's the 80/20 of doing that? How can I make my marketing projects and my content projects easier if I am busy and it's so overwhelming? I have all these tools there that help you gain clarity on your marketing messaging, that help you position yourself. All these things are in the starter kit. It's free. You can grab it there. brandsarealive.com/mojo. The other thing I want to give is a reminder. And this reminder is something that maybe we all think we know, but we don't really know until we fully understood it. Life is temporary. You know, whatever you believe about next life, reincarnation, or nothing, you are here now, and it's an unbelievable gift. It's an unbelievable gift to be alive, even if it's painful. And believe me, I did not have an easy life. My childhood, my teenagers, kind of crazy. It's not always been a pleasant experience. I only started to feel in love with life in my late 20s, when I was 27, and finally really fell in love with life when I turned 33. So it took me 33 years to stop hating my life, which I know for some people listening, maybe they're like 60 or 70 and they're like, well, I still hate my life. Understand, this is a gift. No matter how you feel, no matter what you think, and you're here now, what are you going to do with it? When I say that you are a unique expression of the divine universe, I mean it. It's not just a nice little phrase. If you look around you, everything that is out there, there's only one of it. There's only one of you, with your life, with your perspective, with your mind, with your heart, with your soul. Your flavor, your uniqueness is something that will never be replicated. And so if you are in business, which we all are at the end of the day, right? Because there is this exchange. If you want to live it from a place of freedom, true freedom, because true freedom is not when you make more money. Freedom is when you are free to be whoever you want to be and do whatever you want to do. This is a truth of why people chase after money, because they think that money is the thing that's going to give them this freedom. When I have more money, I will finally not be afraid to be who I really am. But the truth is that freedom can only come from you. That freedom only you can give to yourself. It's not something that you're going to get from out there. So please let that reality sink in, that you are alive now and it's not forever. So I invite everybody listening to carve out the time and space to get to know themselves. We spend so much of our time listening to other people, reading blog posts, listening to YouTube videos, watching an amazing show like this one. But when do you spend time with yourself? When do you spend time getting to know yourself? What I do is not just marketing and branding and business and all of that stuff. That's just what it is on the surface. But what I really love to do more than anything is for people to know who they are, and love who they are, and bring it to everything they create. That is my message, and I thank you very much for having me here today. It has been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much, Alejandro.
No, it was great, Aleana, and thank you everyone that was listening today. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out the SpanglishWorld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live. Thank you, Aleana. It was amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alejandro. Take